So, why does it feel like you are constantly losing control of your focus, your money, and your time? You know the drill, right? You sit down to do some deep work, and literally 2 minutes later, you're mindlessly scrolling on your phone. You try to save up, but that bank account just barely creeps up. You finally get a moment to relax, and your mind is just absolutely racing. Most people look at this loop and think, man, I just lack discipline, or I have zero willpower. But what if I told you that your brain actually isn't broken at all? What you're experiencing is simply ancient biological hardware trying, and let's be honest, struggling to run in a highly stimulated, overloaded modern world.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to diagnose the hidden bugs in your mental software and install some incredibly vital, science-backed patches. It's basically an operating system upgrade for your mind. We're going to look at how you can literally rewire your brain to take back total control. I am so pumped to walk you through this because the research we've pulled together here, it fundamentally changes how we understand human behavior, wealth, and power. All right, let's dive right in. Here's our agenda for today's updates. 1. Your brain is not broken. 2. Rewiring the mental hardware. 3. The hidden psychology of money. 4. Navigating the power game. And 5. The ultimate meta habit. Let's get started with Section 1, Your brain is not broken. Time to diagnose that ancient hardware. Look, your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is to keep you alive. Period. Thousands of years ago, if your brain assumed danger and stayed hyper-alert all the time, you survived. But today, well, there aren't exactly predators chasing you to the grocery store. Instead, we have a massive dopamine problem in a world of just constant stimulation. Your brain literally treats an ignored text message or a packed email inbox like a life or death threat, and it keeps you in this exhausting state of low-grade anxiety. But here is the absolute game changer. Your brain isn't fixed. It adapts. It's a concept called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire and physically change its structure based on what you do every day. This means your habits aren't just things you do, they are literal lines of code, telling your brain what to strengthen and what to weaken. Spend hours scrolling? You are hardwiring your brain for distraction. But the good news? You can totally rewrite the code. So how do we rewrite it? We have to break that default loop. Step 1 is simple but huge. Pause for 5 seconds. When you're stressed, your brain defaults to this automatic knee-jerk emotional reaction. Delaying that response by just 5 seconds actually gives your rational prefrontal cortex time to step in and take over. Step 2, shift your focus. You can interrupt a negative downward spiral just by noticing the physical sounds or textures in the room around you. Ground yourself. And step 3, engage in play. Go do something you actually enjoy with absolutely zero goals attached to it. It sounds almost too simple, right? But doing this rebalances your mind and completely pulls you out of survival mode. Moving right along to Section 2, rewiring the mental hardware. Let's install those patches. I want you to take a good look at this number, 23. That's 23 minutes. According to a study from UC Irvine, it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully regain your deep focus after an interruption. Every single time you switch tasks or quickly check a notification, you are paying a massive cognitive tax. So, the takeaway here is absolutely crucial. Multitasking is a complete myth. To upgrade your mental hardware, you need to commit to a 125-minute single-tasking window every day. Put the phone in another room, keep exactly one tab open, and focus on one task. The sheer depth of work you'll achieve in that single window will easily blow past hours of scattered, distracted effort. Now, to actually sit there and conquer that single task, you've got to understand Parkinson's law. Basically, it states that work is going to expand to fill whatever time you allow for it. Give yourself 3 whole hours to study or write a report. Your inherently lazy brain is just going to stretch that out with endless distractions. So what's the patch for this bug? Artificial urgency. Set a timer for just 20 minutes. Tell yourself, hey, I'm literally only doing 20 minutes. Your brain instantly stops resisting because it feels incredibly easy, and you bypass procrastination entirely. And when it comes to actually remembering and retaining that information, I always think of this brilliant quote from Albert Einstein. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Passively rereading your notes, it just doesn't work. True learning comes from active recall. Seriously, pretend you are explaining a super complex topic to a 5-year-old. The exact moment you stumble or use jargon, bam, that is the blind spot you need to go back and relearn. Of course, all this focus stuff is practically impossible if your mind is constantly bogged down by background noise. Enter the Zeigarnik Effect. This is a fascinating psychological quirk that reveals how unfinished tasks create this relentless, low-grade mental tension. It continuously drains your cognitive battery. It's exactly why you feel so incredibly overwhelmed when your head hits the pillow at night. Your brain is a prediction machine, desperately holding on to open loops so you don't forget them. To fix this, you have to do a weekly reset. Get every single thing out of your head and onto a piece of paper, which naturally brings us to the daily maintenance required for your nervous system. Look, better sleep doesn't start in the morning. It starts with how you actively signal safety to your brain tonight to lower cortisol, which is your alertness hormone. First, dim your environment 60 to 90 minutes before bed to naturally trigger melatonin production. Second, like we just talked about, write down tomorrow's tasks to close those exhausting open loops. Third, use controlled breathing, 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. Those longer exhales activate your vagus nerve, which sends a crystal clear biological signal to your body that it's finally safe enough to rest. All right, shifting gears now to Section 3, the hidden psychology of money. Time to talk financial defense. Now that our biological hardware is humming, let's take a look at our financial operating system. You know what's really interesting about money? It honestly has very little to do with math and spreadsheets, and pretty much everything to do with human emotion and mindset. Let this massive number sink in for a second. $400 million. That is roughly how much the legendary boxer Mike Tyson made during his career. That is an insane amount of money. But by 2003, bankrupt and $23 million in debt. Why? Because making a lot of money absolutely does not guarantee keeping it. Getting wealthy and staying wealthy actually require two completely opposite skill sets. Think about it. To get wealthy, you need bold, risk-taking, extreme optimism, and the guts to make huge bets. Kind of like Elon Musk pouring his early fortunes straight into Tesla. But staying wealthy, that requires the exact opposite. It requires humility, patience, and a constant, almost paranoid avoidance of risk. Think of Warren Buffett, a guy who hates losing money way more than he loves making it. The problem is, once people make it, they often keep playing that aggressive, high-risk game, and that is exactly how they lose the whole shebang. This brings us to a really crucial difference: rational investing versus reasonable investing. Sure, the perfectly rational mathematical move on paper might be to dump all your money into high-yield stocks and literally never touch it. But hey, we aren't robots. When the market inevitably crashes by 40%, you are going to panic. Reasonable investing is a strategy that might not have the absolute highest mathematical return on a spreadsheet, but it is the one that lets you sleep peacefully at night without panic selling every single thing you own at the bottom of the market. Here is the ultimate financial truth we all need to internalize. Wealth is what you don't see. We walk down the street, see a guy in a $300,000 Ferrari, and instantly assume he's rich. But all we actually know for a fact is that he has $300,000 less than he did before, or worse, he's drowning in credit card debt to pay for it. Compare that flashy image to Ronald Reed. He was a gas station attendant and a janitor who died at 92, and he shocked absolutely everyone by leaving behind $8 million. The richest people don't buy shiny things to flex for strangers. They buy invisible wealth. They build an emergency fund that gives them the ultimate superpower, total control over their own time, and the absolute freedom to just walk away from a bad situation. Let's transition over to Section 4, Navigating the Power Game, Mastering the Network. If we are truly upgrading our entire operating system, we have to look impartially at how our social ecosystem actually operates beneath the polite, everyday surface. We're looking at historical strategies that reveal how human psychology functions when real power is on the line. Let's look at a big one. Never outshine the master. Back in 17th century France, finance minister Nicolas Fouquet threw the most spectacular, lavish party imaginable, all to impress King Louis XIV. He thought his incredible display of wealth would earn him major favor, but instead, the king felt horribly insecure and completely overshadowed. The very next morning, Fouquet was arrested and spent the rest of his life in a prison cell. The lesson here is objective and stark. Ensure the people above you always feel comfortably superior, or you quickly become a liability. And to survive in this kind of unpredictable, shifting world, we have to look to this famous quote by Bruce Lee. Be like water. You cannot hold it, you cannot cut it, you cannot predict it. This beautifully illustrates Law 48, assume formlessness. If you commit rigidly to just one strategy, one identity, or one specific routine, you become entirely predictable. And in the real world, predictable things can be easily anticipated, countered, and dismantled.
The ultimate power lies in remaining completely fluid and adaptive to whatever the ecosystem throws at you next.
And finally, Section 5, the ultimate meta habit. Let's run some system maintenance.
We've covered the brain, the daily routines, wealth, and social power. Now let's move to our final installation today. This is the single daily maintenance task that prevents all the other patches we've discussed from totally failing. I call this Habit 20. Never hit zero. Look, motivation is temporary, and for sure, it will fail you. When massive stress hits, you don't need to perform perfectly. You just need a non-negotiable minimum standard to ensure you don't collapse back into those old bad patterns. On your absolute worst days, just do the minimum. Do one push-up, read one page, write one sentence. Why does this matter? Because this isn't about productivity or output at all. It is entirely about identity maintenance. You are proving to your brain exactly who you are every single day. A sharp, disciplined brain is built through these tiny, continuous repetitions that simply say, I am a person who shows up.
And that brings us to our final thought. Transformation doesn't happen in a single dramatic decision or some cinematic movie montage. It happens quietly, without applause, in the invisible micro-habits you construct every day. The person you will be a year from now is being built right now, in the very smallest choices you make today. So armed with this newly upgraded mental software, the question is, who are you choosing to be? Start today, start small, and take back control. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep adapting, and I'll see you next time.